doing well and staying safe while we are in this stay at home shelter in place. As you can see, we are truly living our best lives. Um, my dogs and I are doing great working from home. I am rocking the no makeup, losing my eyelashes, dirty hair look. Um, but something I am grateful for during this time is being able to read and having time to read and enjoying working from home and again having time to read. So the first book I'm going to review is Maybe He Just Likes You by Barbara D. This was one of the first books I read during this shelter in place time, and I loved it. I couldn't put it down. It is a Junior Library Guild pick, and it is super duper cute. So it's about this girl, and she is in middle school, and she starts to notice that boys start kind of treating her differently. At first, they start making comments, and then one day she's at lunch, and this boy comes and asks her for a hug, and she's like, "What? Why?" And then that afternoon, when she's riding the bus home, another boy asks her for a hug, and she doesn't really understand what's going on or why. Well, then a few days later, she finds out that the boys have made a kind of like a bingo card of if they touch her or if they say something to her or if she hugs them. And it gets pretty intense. And one of her friends, was being bullied before, and tells her, like, you need to stand up for yourself, you need to say something. And she's like, no, they're just being silly, like, I will take care of it. And nothing really changes. Well, then another one of her friends notices and finds out what's going on. And one of her other best friends likes one of the boys that's picking on her. And so she thinks that the main character is flirting. And the main character is like, I don't want this. This is not wanted attention. I did not ask for any of this, and I don't like it. Well, finally, it comes to kind of a crescendo, which is funny because they're in band and they're at a band concert when one of the main boys who is picking on her has a solo. And so she chooses to mess up his solo, and it's great, but it really, really makes everybody upset. Well, finally, the band teacher gets upset and is like, why would you do that? And the main character tells her what happened, and everything kind of comes to light, and it was so good. It was really great to kind of see how um kind of being harassed, especially sexual harassment when you're little, people think they're playing. And especially in middle school when they're like, oh, he just likes you, or he's just teasing you because he thinks you're cute. And it's not okay, no matter what. And so the way that they take care of it is just awesome. And I really, really liked it. It was a really great book. So if you get to read it, definitely do that. Another book that I read was George by Alex Gino. I actually read this one in one day, and it was so good. I loved it. So this book is about George, and George was born a boy, but knows that he is supposed to be a girl. And what I loved about it is that from the very beginning, like, look how gorgeous this inside is. It is beautiful. From the beginning, um, it starts with George had to do this, George had to do this, she did this. So from the beginning, we see the pronoun used as she. And it doesn't come out that George was born a boy until almost halfway through the first chapter. So you automatically, the reader, assumes that George is a girl. And the way that George thinks and the way that George explains things, George is a girl. Well, as time goes on and as classes go on, and of course, as she gets picked on, we learn that George was born a boy. And one day, George finally comes to one of her friends and says, no, I'm a boy. And her friend says, oh, like when we play and I say I'm a mermaid. And she's like, no, I'm a girl on the inside. And her friend is like, oh. And her friend kind of freaks out for a little bit. But then she eventually comes back and she's like, I get it and I understand you. And so from now on, I'm going to call you she and you're a girl. And that's it. And I loved it because it was such a great friendship. And in the way that her friend took some time to be like, I don't understand, but we're friends and I'm going to love you anyway. And it's so good because then to watch their dynamic change and to watch that support that George gets was just amazing. And I loved it. It was so good. And I have one more book that I want to review because it was also great. Notice these are all middle grade books. And so I've been reading a lot of middle grade so that I can recommend those to my students. So the other book I read, this is Clean Getaway. This is Nick Stone's first middle grade book, and it was so good. Oh my goodness. I cannot with how good it was. So this is Scoob. I don't even know what his real name is because I don't remember, but he goes by Scoob, right? And Scoob is under a lot of pressure from his dad, and his dad is kind of a pain in the ass. Um, and so one day, Scoob's grandma comes, and the first thing you need to know about Scoob's grandma is she is an older white lady, and she sells her house and she buys a Winnebago. And so they just go. Like one day, his grandma comes and she's like, "Hey, you want to go on a road trip?" And he says, "Yes." And they go. Well, Scoob leaves his phone at home. So his dad is trying to get a hold of him, and something Scoob notices his dad calls his grandma. And at first, his grandma answers and is like, "Oh, that old bore. He just doesn't want us to have any fun." And Scoob doesn't really know where they're going. So it gets kind of weird. And then as the trip goes on, Scoob notices that grandma doesn't answer the phone when dad calls, doesn't check the voicemails. And so Scoob kind of starts to get suspicious and starts to worry because then he catches grandma swapping license plates on the Winnebago when they stop for the night at other mobile trailer parks, whatever. And as they go on the way, he notices that things are getting kind of weird. And one day he wakes up and he sees on TV that there is an Amber Alert out for him. And his dad has finally just gone in and put in an Amber Alert because he can't find him. He can't get a hold of him. And Scoob notices there's something kind of wrong with grandma. Like sometimes she calls him by his dad's name. She keeps talking about where they're going and that she just needs to get there and then it'll all be taken care of. Well, Scoob learns that they're going on this trip to see places that grandma and his grandpa, who passed away, were visiting, and places that were safe for couples like them, where when the lady was white and the man was black. And we learned that Scoob's grandpa was arrested for something that someone else did. And it was so amazing to see all of this come to life. Like it's so much family drama just coming together. You can see my babies are waiting for me to play with them. But see all this drama coming together and seeing all these different understandings in the different places in the family. It was just great and I loved it. And that the ending is kind of rushed, like it happens in about 5 or 10 pages. But what I've learned in reading these middle grade books is that happens. Like a common theme in these middle grade books I've been reading is that the ending is like conflict, a little bit of resolution, and bam, end. So the endings happen pretty quickly, but it was a really good, really well-rounded ending, and I loved it. So again, these 3 books were Clean Getaway, George, and Maybe He Just Likes You, and I highly, highly recommend them. So, so good. I hope you enjoy them too. Stay safe, wash your hands, and take care of yourselves.